All right.
Stream.
Yeah, we are live.
Hello.
Um, Thank you. I'm joined here today by Maxine and Magneno Alex and Brennan, aka Quinlan Voss, will be joining us later. We are here to talk about a new Star Wars novel that was released by Joe Bongiorno called Supernatural Encounters: The Trial and Transformations of Arhul Hextrophon. Um, a bit of backstory about this book before we kind of get into it. Let my co-hosts and fellow readers introduce themselves. Is that Supernatural Encounters? I think it was originally commissioned as, if I'm not mistaken, an article for Gamer Magazine, and then when that went defunct, it I think found a home in hyperspace, but then that went defunct, and then Joe received permission to release it on his own, which you can find it on his website, starwarstimeline.net. And it's for free, digital copy of it. I definitely recommend you check it out because there's some amazing art in it. The book itself, from what I've read so far, is really great. And in this particular stream, we're going to be covering the first 8 chapters, which comprises book 1, called The Trial. I believe it's broken down to 6 books in total, Supernatural Encounters, and so book 1, I think, is probably the shortest, and that's what we're going to be covering today. I'll let my co-hosts introduce themselves. Maxine.
I'm Strictly Star Wars. It's my first time on Marcel's channel. I'm very glad to be here. I run an Instagram page. It's called Strictly Star Wars, and I have a new YouTube channel going by the same name, Strictly Star Wars. My Instagram is my first and foremost content platform, as I've been at it for nearly 10 years now. So that's basically it for me.
Alex.
I'm Alex. Magneno Alex. I review books. But next question.
Actually, well, I guess the first question is, how did you both first hear about Supernatural Encounters?
Alex, do you want to go first on this one, or should I?
Whatever you want.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
So I had heard about it. I read about it first, like a long time ago, before I think it started to be like written again. I had just heard about this really like absurd text, and like I remember reading it like late at night, and it was like super it felt really like eerie and stuff, and I didn't know what it was, and I was just hoping that I could find some sort of physical copy of it. And then like after a while I forgot about it, and then coming into the fold and the community that I have, well, not that I have, but that I am in, I had learned that it was still being produced, and kind of piqued my interest, of course. And then I got onto the bandwagon there, and I learned about it, and I talked to the author, Joe Bongiorno, who's a spectacular guy, and secured my copy and my place within the campaign for it. So
how about you, Alex? Alex is muted. So I will go ahead and say, actually, Maxine, I learned about it from one of your Instagram streams a long time ago.
No way.
Yeah, you were mentioning how you, this is like so long ago, this is over a year ago.
No way.
Yeah, you were mentioning how you like sort of like the weird aspects of Star Wars, and there was this like sort of like, I guess not short story. At that point, it was like kind of like a novella out there, Supernatural Encounters, and it was available on Joe's website. This is an earlier version of the one that we're going to be talking about today. The one that we're talking about today is a 1,055 page book.
Yeah.
You can see it's huge. But that's how I learned about it at first, and then same as you,
cool.
Yeah, through the community. Wow. So it's actually kind of ironic that you're here today because you're the first person who keyed me into it. But then through the community, I learned that there was this.
That's so cool.
That you could basically, donate money to get a physical copy, but that digital copies would be available to everyone. And
that is amazing.
So yeah. And then I'm still waiting for my contributor copy, but I got a physical copy at LegendsCon, so I'm able to start reading it because digital is kind of harder for me to read.
Yeah.
How about you, Alex?
I learned about it through the Matt Wilkins. He talked about it for a couple years, and I heard about that, and I was like, that sounds interesting. And I learned basically the same thing that Maxine did, but it was through Matt. So,
Oh yeah, was that your Matt impression?
yeah, he's all Southerner, and he talks like this all the time. And the young Jedi Knights, it should actually be beforehand of Thrawn because of this and that.
They were kids.
They were kids.
I love it. It seems so. Hello, Blue Pig. Thank you for joining us today. Blue Pig, will you be reading Supernatural Encounters? So I guess we could start with book one. Again, I mean, if you're watching this either now or later, there will be spoilers. So you are warned. We will be talking about things that occur in the book. So if you're planning on reading this and you don't want to be spoiled, then maybe don't watch this stream, or let it play in the background with the volume off so I still get the view, but don't watch the stream. We can start a campaign to get Blue Pig a copy of this book.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't read digital either, so I had to wait for a
Neither
physical
do
copy. Or at least
I started reading it as soon as it was released.
Yeah, I would
Online.
so did I, kind of, but I can't read like this length of a book that's digital.
Yeah.
It would just, my eyes would fall out. But book one, The Trial, kind of starts. Well, there's an introduction and there's like a prologue, right? But the prologue, spoilers, starts with basically the last moments of Arhul Hextrophone's life. He in sort of like almost this like gothic, like macabre way, he's being hunted by these shadows essentially, and they finally get to him, and I think at one point he says it's because of like the truth that he's uncovered, but it's like really already out there at this point, right? And then the next, I think chapter one starts in with us learning that he was exsanguinated, which means that he was drained of all of his blood, essentially. Yeah. So grisly end for our poor friend Hex.
Yeah.
That would be pretty meta. I won't lie. But yeah. So and then basically book one, The Trial, as it's called. It's the present day. I think it takes place, I want to say 36 ABY, so right after the Dark Nest crisis. And before Legacy of the Force, but there's the Historical Council of the Galactic Alliance, and please, if I'm getting anything wrong, just interrupt me, guys. But Historical Council is debating the veracity of Arhul Hextrophon's text. So they basically have his manuscript. They have copies of his manuscript, and there's like you get the sense that there's like tons of people at this council. I think in like the first chapter alone, I read like 20 names, and then you get even more people. Like you find out Leia's there.
Theon is there.
Theon is there. Solusar. You find
Sindel
out
Tawani.
Sindel Tawani's there.
Hey, Al.
Thanks, man. Yeah, good to see you. I think Al actually, he was actually on that Instagram live stream as well.
Yeah,
like a year and a half ago when I first learned about this book.
He's a regular on my Instagram page. So.
Set during that time period, but so is Millennium Falcon. Yes. Pig, I will send you some passages later because Sindel talks about the Ewoks show in the movies, and it's pretty funny. So in any event, they're debating the veracity of this manuscript, and we see, to give like just a very, very brief recap, we see that as they're reading the manuscript, Arhul Hextrophon, or Hex as I'm going to call him, is trying to uncover the lost past of the galaxy, and the generally accepted historical record is not correct as far as he can see, and so he's trying to uncover the truth, and he goes after specifically this race of people called the Osirians, and after consulting with a supercomputer, Madame Nemos, he realizes that he has to go into other space to find the answers that he seeks. And in order to do so, he needs to find a way into other space. Yeah. So that's generally the really high level overview of book one. He doesn't Oh yeah, this is funny. There's a lot you can do with those names. Not all of which is appropriate for live streaming, for sure. So, oh, look at that. Yeah, because it mentions Ewoks. There's also some Ewoks art in there that I'll send you as well, Blue Pig, which I think you'd find interesting. But yeah, that's book one. So I guess I'm going to turn over to you guys. Overall, we can get into the nitty gritty, but overall thoughts.
I love it. I think it's a really good introduction. Like starting off with seeing Hex at like the end of his life, and at the end of his journey, that we see him start on, like in the later stuff, like in the next chapter. Because at first, like when you read him, he starts off as like a skeptic. He's just like, this is all kind of just mumbo jumbo. But when you read him in the introduction, he's like talking like, he knows the secrets of the universe. And I love seeing that because you're like, oh, well, he was like seeing him get to the point where we see him before he dies. It's like it kind of comes full circle, which I'm sure it will even more when we get farther into the book. And I love like just the banter and bickering between all of the counselors on the historical council, and it's so good. And then obviously the artwork in the first book is spectacular, and it kind of it really does like kind of lay the land, like the intro, when you read his death, because they mention like Typhogem and they mention all these different names and stuff in the intro. So it's like, ooh, who's that? And then you like learn again like who it is, and like later on, it's just so cool. It's so cool. It's so eerie and so haunting, but it's spectacular. It's a really good, very strong intro, very strong like first like book.
Yeah. How about you, Alex?
I loved it. I love that intro with, his demise. It reminded me a lot of how Darth Plagueis starts with seeing Sidious over Plagueis, dead. Kind of spoils the whole story, but you already know the story. But it was very Lovecraftian. It's been hard for me to read a lot of Lovecraft because the way he writes is a bit hard for me sometimes to get into. But I've read enough to where it felt very much like that, where you have the skeptic who sees things no mortal's supposed to see, and I love horror, and it's not necessarily a horror book. I wouldn't say that. There's definitely a lot of dreariness and darkness to it, but it's not exactly trying to horrify you. It's just there's just a lot of darkness embedded within it, and I vibe with that a lot. So, and the whole council debating everything. I don't know if this is more in the next book or not, but I'm pretty sure it's in the early parts of the book. But where they're all debating whether or not it's reliable or not. Whether it be about historical stuff in real life or about the theological stuff with God and whatnot, I've heard a lot of these conversations verbatim in real life, and I think Joe captured that really well with some of the things that are discussed there. So, but I agree with Maxine on the whole, with seeing him being so sure, and fearing for his life as these shadows are coming upon him, to see him at the start where he's like arguing that this is all bullcrap, it's fine, we'll figure out the truth, only to see him finally accept it all in the very beginning is insane to me. But I really enjoyed that opening section.
And then going off of the real life kind of argument thing, so it's like the debate within the book itself, within the story, is like debating whether like the events that Arhul Hextrophon like actually details in his manuscript, they are debating obviously the legitimacy of it, and how real it could be, and which parts could be just complete falsehoods and just fairy tales. And it mirrors the real life conversation around the book, because the community is all in an uproar whether it's canon or not, or certain things in the book are canon or not, and everybody's just yelling at each other. And then there's the people who are all for it, they're the believers, and then and Joe Bongiorno is just kind of sitting off to the side, like he's not there, like he's our whole Hextrophon, and then like everybody else is just left to debate over the work. It's like he had some sort of foresight when writing this. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I think you
I will
said
say, me and Marcel talked to Joe. I think Brennan brought that up at Legends Con, and he's like, I did not plan for that. That just kind of happened.
That's what he says.
Yeah, I think Maxine, before we came on stream, she said she thinks Joe's force sensitive. So
yeah, he's definitely got some sort of powers of
yeah.
Yeah, if anyone was, it'd be him. I swear, but we helped him out. There was one day Joe was he looked really tired in the hotel, and Marcel's like, "Do you need coffee, man?" And he's like, he looked dead. He looked like a zombie. He's like, "Yeah, I could use some coffee." And then Marcel's over here being all like Chadley is like, "I'll get you some coffee." Puts on his sunglasses, and then we head over and get some coffee.
I got Alex some coffee too. That was fun. Definitely needed it because that was the second day of the con, and that first day it almost felt like a work day. Like we were just so busy, right? And I know that we live stream after, but Joe I think went to that cantina night after. So definitely like everybody was just burning the candle at both ends. I just want to say hello to some people in the comments. Hello, Arthur. Thank you for briefly joining us. I know you have to go because you don't want to be spoiled. So nice to see you. And hello, Pico. Thanks for being here. Al Bernardi says, before I go, is SE worth going after a physical copy, waiting for some other printing, or just reading it now online? I'm very anti-digital, but I really want to read SE. You see, yeah, that's the real question. I mean, I'm anti-digital too, so I would try and see if you can secure a physical copy, but barring that, I think digital may just be the only way to go. I know that, I don't want to speak out of turn, but there may be options for people who missed out on the donating and don't necessarily have access to a physical copy. So if I learn of those options, I'll contact you, and hopefully we'll be able to get you a physical copy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Arthur Hextrophon. That's right. I like calling him Hex. Actually, there was one point I was reading. I think it was like book 1, and someone called him Hex. I was like, "Who's Hex?" I was like, "Oh, right, the main character." Who we should mention is actually was retconned. I think in the EU. The Arhul Hextrophon is like an actual character in the EU. He was retconned to be. I think the guy who's standing behind Leia in the in A New Hope at the end in the celebration, like in the hallway. He was part of the Rebel Alliance, so really cool that he actually has like a movie character. I think he's played by a guy named Nick Joseph, who's well aware of this book. I know that I know Nick is aware that Supernatural Encounters is coming out or has come out.
Cool. Someone get him a copy.
Yeah, well, I'm certain that he either has a copy or will be getting a copy shortly. Yeah, I think Joe updated everybody today saying that he's shipped out most, if not all, of the domestic orders, and then international is he's getting there. So everybody who ordered should be getting their copies relatively soon. But yeah, I want to just chime in with my thoughts on book 1. I was blown away. I mean, like some of the language is a bit inaccessible, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Like there's sometimes there's words that are used that I actually made like some notes of the words that were used, but I just like had to like look up because I had no clue what they meant. Like incarnadine and erubescent are just two. They basically like describing like red or crimson or like pinkish hue. But essentially, both of those words. I'm like, how many words do we need to describe like that kind of color?
To be fair, that's also very Lovecraft. That's some of the stuff that made it hard for me to read Lovecraft, was because the worst part too is that he wants to describe to you, not to get off a tangent, but Lovecraft wants you to imagine something that's unimaginable, and he'll give you like 20 words to describe something that you're not meant to understand what it is. And it gets a bit much, and I don't think Joe is as guilty of this, but he definitely does do that sometimes with big words unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I would agree with that criticism as well. But like, you know what I mean? Like he's really channeling his inner Lovecraft. He's channeling his inner Tolkien with the Silmarillion, and that's kind of the vibes that I got from reading. Like you can tell, like I think he's been very open about his influences for this book, and Lovecraft is one of them. And you could tell, like, I think I was reading one term called like the I might be mispronouncing this word, but like gibbous or gibbous moon. And I'm like
yeah.
that term is like straight out of Lovecraft. I feel like, right, describing the moon is like gibbous.
Yeah.
Here, Blue Pig says someone should find that actor and let him know. I believe him and Joe are in contact either on social media or elsewhere. So I'm pretty
Must be
sure he
rather
does know.
old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because assuming he was in his like probably what, like 30s in that movie,
Probably,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's, like, he might be in his like 70s or 80s now.
Hmm.
But that's kind of cool. Like, I'm sure, like, you know, him playing a bit part in this movie, which turns out to be like one of the most popular movies of all time, is in
Yeah.
itself amazing. But then to learn that there's like maybe like the largest piece of Star Wars fiction ever written about his
Yeah.
character, like his character's findings and stuff like that. That's got to be kind of cool. Like, find out like years later. But yeah, I mean, I thought book one was really well done. It really, like, I'm a big fan of like mysteries and like eldritch mysteries and like ancient and lost civilizations. And yeah, Maxine, I know you are too. So it's like just getting drawn into that world, even if there's no answers. I just like the mystery.
Exactly.
It makes I mean, I don't know, I forget how much is discussed of it in book one, but I think it starts to get mentioned, but I know they further delve into it in other books. But you know, it makes like the 80s books, like the Lando Calrissian trilogy, so much more important because
I
the
know.
bad guys he faces in that is the sorcerers of Rand and all that.
Yeah.
And so that gets brought up, I think, in the first book, but I could be wrong. But it's cool to see these things that were very 80s and schlocky become vastly more important to the overall mythos.
Yeah, and that's I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
But they, in one of the chapters, they talk about the Hell Hoop, the very old Marvel comic. And as Alex was saying, it makes these really old things like feel so much more important and impactful to everything. Because like you look at it at first at like face value, and it's just like this silly, like really old comic, and like there's just this being made of light that's supposedly this force demon, and then Han and Leia get trapped in this thing called the Hell, and then when you read it in Supernatural Encounters, you're like, holy crap, it's like this really big, like dark, like mystery to be unraveled. And I was saying the other day, like in future, well, not future things, but like in later parts of the book, I will never look at like Talatni Throws a Shape, that comic, like ever again, like the same. Like it has forever changed my view on it.
Yeah.
And same thing with like the Hell Hoop and like the Ewok stuff. So
yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, like, even like we were talking earlier just about Lando and the Mind Harp of Sharu, and I reread that book last year. It's a really short book, but I want to almost go back and reread it like a third time just because it's mentioned directly, right? Like, I think when the historical council. So I should mention in book one, as the manuscript is getting read, there are various points where members of the historical council are interrupting the reading, being like, preposterous, what is he saying? I don't agree with this at all. And then they just break out into a huge argument about who's right and who's wrong. You can tell, like, there are people like Leia and Mammon who Professor, wait, no, he's not Professor Hool's not a professor, but anyways, is it Uncle Hool from the Galaxy of Fear series is there as well, and they're all like Hool and Leia, they're all like pro Hex, right? They're very sympathetic, but then there are people like, oh, look who we have loading in. Hello, welcome.
Let's go. Oh my god, he made it.
We can hear you. Yeah, but then there are people who like think that Hex is basically lying, or that he went insane or something like that. So, hello, Brennan, welcome.
Here,
Quinlan Voss.
Try to rejoin. My Wi-Fi's having terrible connectivity issues tonight. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
All right, we'll remove him and see if he comes back. So yeah, I mean, it kind of gives all these like obscure things, I think, a bit more importance, or like allows you to look at them in a new light, right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. I think that that's there are very few works that do that. Like the example that I always like to use is I believe, I don't know what made the connection, but the Darth Bane books, the Path of Destruction, when that came out, it talks about events that we see kind of finally play out in Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, when Kyle Katarn frees the souls from the Valley of the Jedi, right? And that those souls are trapped in Path of Destruction, which is like written like years later.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, oh man, it makes me look at like Dark Forces 2 in a different light now that like I know that there's this added significance and context to it. Hello, welcome back.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Awesome.
Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Brendan, seeing as you're new on this stream and you get to introduce yourself as well.
My name's Brennan. Marcel's awesome. Max is awesome. Alex is awesome, and I'm honored to be here.
Okay. Brennan, since he won't talk about it, has a YouTube channel and an Instagram page and a Discord and a Twitter and all those good things. But
so the coolest person on stream.
Yeah, well, we can.
Everybody's cool.
We're gonna like start debating like the historical council. But yeah, I will try and edit the description of this video and link all the channels for all three of you later, so that people can subscribe to you and check out your content. But yeah, Brennan, thoughts on book 1?
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spotlight.
You cut out a bit on my end. So you said thoughts on book 1. I wasn't sure if you're talking to me. Well, I love it. It's probably the best out of the first 3 books, I would say. I just think it presents a really interesting dilemma, to where it's kind of like an in-universe debate. It's like almost courtroom drama with these different sides going at each other. They provide evidence to where one minute you're thinking, oh, Arhul's a lunatic. The next minute you're thinking, oh, he's telling the truth. Because they're providing compelling evidence either way. And I just think it's very interesting. And there's tons of great references, tons of familiar faces. Mungo Baobab. It was great to see from droids. And of course, oh geez, his name's slipping my mind now. Uncle Hool from Galaxy of Fear is absolutely amazing. Vorin Naal is a great character as well. And Janzakek, if I'm saying his name right, is such a great antagonistic character as well. He's so fun to read. He's like the perfect like villainous kind of guy, you know? Like he's like, you don't like him, but he's like kind of like Borskvalia in that way.
That's what I was saying. That's exactly what I said the other day. I was reading it. I was like, this dude's like Borskvalia.
Yeah, he's the necessary skeptic, right? Like there needs to be a skeptic in there to challenge these beliefs. There was one really funny part. I like how he kind of tries to discredit Sindel Tawani towards the end of book 1 and basically say like, oh, like, you know, like he mocks the fact that like she has all these wild stories about the Ewoks and stuff like that. And then I think she points out, she's like, yeah, but like, you know, like even you, like people wouldn't, like, you know, some humans might not believe that like a lizard person like yourself exists, right?
I love that.
She said something like, some humans in the core would be surprised that a talking lizard exists.
Yeah.
It was great.
I love that so much.
And like, you know, she's right in the sense that like, I mean, you know, put yourself in their shoes, right? Like these people live in a galaxy far, far away where they can travel faster than the speed of light. They, you know, there's all these, there's like the Force first of all, and then there's all these other, you know, weird and crazy beings all around. And it's just like in that, when you live in that kind of context where there is like a bit of magic in the universe, like can we credibly throw out everything that Arhul is saying? And that's how I feel about this book too, like from like a meta perspective, is like, can we credibly throw all of this out? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that I think that it bears at least further scrutiny. I think that people, before they throw it out of hand because they heard something that they didn't agree with, should kind of give it at least a try to give it like a once over and determine for themselves. I think if you're not hooked by the end of book one, and book one's only about, I think, like 68 pages long, then
It's 8
fair enough.
chapters, I believe.
Yeah, it's 8 chapters. Yeah, you've put it, you've given it the college try. But I feel like for someone like myself, like by the end of book one, I was like completely hooked. I was drawn into the mystery. Yeah. Yeah. So we got Alex back.
Sorry, internet be bad.
Welcome back. No worries.
What I missed was Brennan being awesome again.
Yeah, he was. Brennan has just revealed to us that he'll be writing Supernatural Encounters 2.
Whoa, let's go! Crazy.
It's going to be 2,110 pages.
Oh, is it out, dude?
Just be prepared to understand all the words and for nothing to go over your head.
Okay, so you're going to be the Kevin Janderson of Supernatural Encounters.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Kevin.
Poor Kevin. He does good work, though. One thing that I wanted to talk about was this concept of spurious directories in book one.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's like the SDs. So it's like what's interesting is that the Historical Council will accept anything really, right? As long as it's not like, I guess, completely janky, but they'll accept anything really. But they have like almost like a folder, like some digital folder, like some filing cabinet where they just throw in everything that like is nonsensical or can't be proven or goes against the accepted paradigm, and they call them the spurious directories or the SDs. And there was a quote that I kind of highlighted that I want to talk about. It's on page 42, but it's there's a mission report that Luke and Leia submit from their time on the Keeper's World, as it was termed before its name was known.
Yeah.
But it wasn't with their other files. It would later be discovered in the SDs, the spurious directories. Some prior historian, deeming the account apocryphal, had taken it upon himself to place it there. So the interesting thing about this, like twofold interesting, is like number one is like just the power that historians have to determine the historical narrative, and we see that in our own world all the time, right? It's like there's that line that says like victors are the ones who write history and stuff like that. But then the second thing is like I felt like that was almost like a metatextual reference to Canon, because it's like those early references, those early adventures like the Marvel adventures and the pizzazz stuff are I think they were Canon.
Yeah,
or at least some of the events. The events in them were largely relegated to Canon. So almost like spurious directories is like kind of like reflective of that in a sense that we can like pull out what we can later corroborate, but for the most part, it's like they're there, they exist, but we can't necessarily corroborate that they happened as told, right?
Yeah.
So I
think cool. That they were in Canon for years, right? And I think it was like completely thought of as non-canonical until like Legacy of the Force introduced Lumia or Lumaya, however you say it, back into the fold, and then it was like, okay, maybe some of this does fit, right?
Yeah.
And characters like Jackson showing up in later EU works, it was like showing that okay, maybe some of this has a place, and so it's kind of like you can pull some stuff out of that file cabinet, and then some of these historians now can ask Luke and Leia, okay, how much of this actually happened? Imagine the Historical Council surprise when Luke and Leia revealed that the events of Wood Wars happened. It'll be crazy.
That's so funny. I think that even then, like there's always going to be, even if you're hearing it from someone as esteemed as Luke or Leia, there's always going to be someone on the council or someone, and this is true of our own world as well, who will just disagree with that narrative, who will say like, no, that doesn't make sense. Either you're mistaken or you're lying.
Yeah.
Right.
I liked especially when they're like supernatural stuff is impossible, and somebody goes the Force, and then they go, yeah, but that's science. We just don't understand everything yet. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
Oh,
they
you
talk
literally-
about it like they do in the prequels with like midichlorians, assigning midichlorians to it. They're like trying to make it all scientific, you know?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the book also goes into that and making it. I don't think in this book. I think in the next book, but about how that all works and how it can still be mystical and scientific at the same time.
Yeah.
I was curious what you guys thought about this. So on page 33, there's this reference to the Clone Wars and how like we can't even get our own history of the Clone Wars straight. Basically, it's Janzikek basically brings up that the Clone Wars, the dating was off, which I think is like a kind of like in-universe rationalization of the fact that the earlier EU works got the Clone Wars dates off by a number of years, and then
Multimedia project.
and then there's the multimedia project, which comes into conflict with TCW, and so that's kind of alluded to here. Did you like that? I'm just curious, sort of like going around the table, starting with Maxine, but like, did you like that, or did you think that maybe it was too on the nose?
No, I thought it was good because it's again another proving point as to like the striving for continuity within the EU and whatnot, and course correcting. Like, you see a problem and then you come up with something that actually works and fits to correct it and be like, okay, so this is why we said it like that. Just like the Boba Fett in Young Jedi Knights, So I liked it. I thought it was cool. So I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, like it makes sense now. I was like, that's perfect. So I liked it.
Yeah. How about you, Brennan?
I thought it was great. Sometimes if something's on the nose, that's better, right? Because it's like hammering it home. And I thought it hammered home that the Clone Wars is a messy era, out of universe and in universe. During a war, how many battles, how many skirmishes are lost to time? And it's a messy era within universe, and I really like that we kind of got that established. They can't get their own history straight from 30 years, 40 years prior. Maybe a little more than that by this time, but I thought it was great.
And you, Alex?
I'm pretty much the same opinion. I've heard a lot more dissent about this because I spend too much time on Discord, even though I have no time, but I have enough time to look at the negatives. But I just find it funny because, it's too on the nose to make this reference to the Clone Wars and how it's messy, but it's too obscure when they use big words that you don't understand. So I think it's picking and choosing what to like and what to dislike just for the sake of it, instead of actually having an issue with it, because that thing in the book is something that EU authors would have done. It's something that I would have seen in the book had the EU not been discontinued. Somebody else would have done it, and maybe in another context, but they would have done something exactly like that. So it's exactly a natural progression of how the EU works and what it does, and
because it's a part of the EU.
Yeah, hey Maxwell, good to see you. Yeah, I had heard rumblings of this as well, so I guess stay tuned.
Nick Joseph, yes, indeed.
I mean, I think that on the Supernatural Encounters panel at Legends Con, Kyle Rawlings, who's in charge of, it's Kyle and Joe who are in charge of putting the audio drama together, and said it's going to probably take a few years to put the audio drama together, just because it's probably the largest or one of the largest audio productions ever, which is totally fair. I mean, it's a huge book.
One of them joked that they're going to try to submit it to Guinness for an actual world record.
They should. I mean, I think it's going to be fantastic. And the guy that they got to narrate it is just, and it's coming from someone who narrates short stories. It's just incredibly amazing. I could listen to him read all day long. So I'm really looking forward to this this audio drama when it does come out. I'm very happy that the book is finally out. I know that there were a lot of people who were very upset that it was taking as long as it did, but I feel like now at least we can look back in retrospect and sort of see why it took as long as it did, because the attention to detail in this book, whether or not you love it, whether or not you even accept it as official to the EU or fan fiction, like the attention to detail is something that you cannot, or at least cannot credibly, I think, say anything negative about, because it's just an incredible.
It's part of what Joe said on his panel. Sorry, I interrupt you. I got kind of buffered there. Sorry, finish. That's my bad.
Oh, you
Right
didn't
next
interrupt me. Go for it, Alex. I don't know if
No,
you had anything more to add.
oh, yeah. Well, sorry, I just thought I interrupted you because it was being all buffery for me. So I
No,
apologize.
not at all. I was done my diatribe, but yeah, I just think that there's we're Star Wars fans, so we're always going to put every single piece of Star Wars media, whether it's from the old continuity or the new canon, we're going to put it under like the most intense scrutiny, because that's what we do. We're
Yeah.
Star Wars fans, right? Star Wars fans
my
love
God.
to nitpick, right?
Oh,
It
my
does seem to
favorite.
me it does seem to me at times that that supernatural encounters it's getting a lot more scrutiny than usual, but I almost attribute that to the fact that there hasn't really been any new EU media on this scale in however long. So people have just been saving, like it's just like saving up they're scrutinizing for it's now it's just all coming out and overflowing. And I mean
think,
yeah, go ahead.
I also
Brennan.
think that it's a bit daunting
Hey,
for
man.
some people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you look at this, you look at how much text is per page, and I feel like some people are just like, nah, I don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
But
You know,
daunting for
that's
some
too
people, daunting for
scary.
me, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
I read 30 pages today, and it took me like a couple hours just because I kept every single page. I swear I have notes on every single page.
Okay. There's a specific chapter. I can't remember if it's in book 1. So if not, I won't talk about it here. But let me see. There's a specific chapter, and I swear I reread this thing like 17 times. Like no joke. I reread it over 10 times, and I still don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful at the same time. It was called. Let's see. Yeah, it's the first Earth Worlds. It's chapter 24. So it's
Oh my God, I was lost too. Thankfully, I'm so glad I wasn't the only one who was like a little.
I was like, what is going on?
All right. Well, we'll get to that in a later stream, and hopefully we can all try and make
man.
sense of it together.
That would be wonderful, because I was reading that whole part and I was just like, what the hell? Like,
Hey, man, good to see you.
oh my gosh.
But I was gonna say, because on Joe's panel, he talked about, trying to make sure that everything didn't, contradict anything else, and that took a long time. And he even mentioned, like a lot of the reasons, there's continuity errors in books in the EU is because they had a scheduled release, so they couldn't check everything. So sometimes errors would occur because they simply just didn't have time to go over everything. And so that isn't an issue with Joe because he had such a long time to do it. So people can complain all they want about the long process, but what was the first argument? The story's never going to come out, and the book's never going to come out. The book's out, and the story's out. And as far as I can tell, there's a very, 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 very slim, if any, contradictions in this book that I can find, at least. But there's a lot there, so maybe there is. But more time provides less room for error.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say contradictions. Sorry, Brennan. I wouldn't say contradictions per se, but just to be fair to like some of the dissenting opinions, which I think should also have a voice, even if it's on the historical council. There are certain reimaginings of things that we previously thought we knew, which I think is like well within the realm of this book and sort of what it sets out to do.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a contradiction, right? It's very deliberately done, right? Yeah.
And it's also written as a take it or leave it approach.
Exactly.
If you want to take it that way, take it. If you don't need to take it as fact, right? And so it's kind of the beauty of its own ambiguity that makes it to where everyone can take what they want out of it, right? But what Alex said really got me thinking about one of the update days Joe did. Did you guys read his analogy where he talked about like using weed killer in a garden? Have you guys read that?
I
recall, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the book too, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
he put it in the book.
I was reading it earlier.
Yeah, he put it in the book, but he first put it on his website where he used it as an example for like why the book was taking so long. What he said was, well, first of all, these are his words. Is it okay if I would read some of those, Marcel?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, so what he said was, this is his words now. I wanted to say how much I appreciate your charitableness in regards to the length of time this has taken. Perhaps with today's update, I can delve into some of the reasons why this project has taken so long. talk a bit about the process and continuity, and do so without rambling on for too long. It occurs to me that many, but not all, modern writers tend to work like landscapers. They're hired to do a job, make the property look good, and do so quick and efficiently. The problem is that actually causes more harm than good. As the New York Times notes, nearly everything about how Americans care for their lawns is deadly. Pesticides prevent wildflower seeds from germinating and poison the insects that feed songbirds and other wildlife. Lawnmower blades set too low chop into bits the snakes and turtles and baby rabbits that can't get away in time. Mulch piled too deep smothers ground nesting bees, and often the very plants that mulch is supposed to protect as well. But the gasoline-powered leaf blower exists in a category of environmental hell all its own, spewing pollutants, carbon monoxide, smog-forming nitrous oxides, carcinogenic hydrocarbons into the atmosphere at a literally breathtaking rate. And then Joe says, they get the job done, but at a cost to our health, environment, and wildlife. There exist safe alternatives, but those take longer. One would hope that with knowledge and concern for people, nature, and other fellow creatures, this might change. Yet because most want to get the job done and move on to the next assignment, it probably won't happen until people demand it. This strikes me as similar to writing in a shared universe. Writers, editors, and publishers demand everything quickly. What suffers is the characters, setting, and history. As I noted, there's a better way. And if you've been in an expanded universe fan for some time, you will have seen the considerable care taken with this matter of continuity, which is a word we throw around a lot, but it simply means ensuring the integrity of the larger story. And he goes on to basically say that he's making sure to do a careful job. If he rushed this, it would be like using, weed killer on the weeds and causing more harm than good, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. What was it that Abel Pena said to you, Alex, at LegendsCon? He said continuity is the story.
Well, when I was signing my book, The Legends Never Die, that he wrote, he asked me what's my favorite thing about Star Wars, and I said continuity. So he wrote in my copy, and when he signed it, he said continuity underlined is the story.
Yeah,
it is
based.
One thing I just wanted to circle back on in the book was the Lovecraft references. There's a professor named Miska Tonic, and that's a direct, basically, reference to Miskatonic University, which is a popular setting in Lovecraft stories in I think it's like New England, like Massachusetts, right? So and then he talks about Ophidian grotesques. And I think essentially what those are, like, these are these statues that Arhul Hextrophon finds around the galaxy. Ophidian is like snake-like, and grotesques are like so it's like those Cthulhu statues, essentially, is what they are. Like, and this isn't something like Joe made up. Like, this is like Pomo Gemma, who is described as a minor god in Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which is written by Alan Dean Foster in the late 1970s, before Empire Strikes Back came out. Pomo Gemma is described in that manner, and then in the comics is drawn basically as
and Alan Moore stuff.
Yeah, Cthulhu. Like in the Splinter of the Mind's Eye comic adaptation, like, here, let's see if we can pull up a picture of Pomo Gemma. I'll try and screen
he's
share.
snake-like on the statues, very Cthulhu-like.
So here, let me see if I can share screen. Is it present? Okay. Share screen. Share. So just very quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? As you can see, like, and this is from Splinter of the Mind's Eye, right? This has nothing to do with supernatural encounters. It's preceded it. This is just Joe picking up the threads and unweaving them for our benefit. But that's basically what I would consider like an Ophidian grotesque, right? And that's the kyber crystal in the middle of it. But it's crazy how you see like these very, very early sources, as we said earlier, just kind of come back into it, and like huge Lovecraftian elements that he draws on, but also incorporates into his work.
He incorporates so much into his work. If you read the endnotes, which I've been trying to refrain from that, as I've been trying to like go into it kind of blind, like try to find the references on my own. But in the endnotes, like I ended up yesterday, I'm writing a script for a new Supernatural Encounters video, and I spent like 2 hours on the chapter 1 quotation for book 1, The Trial, which is by a guy in universe called Yaman Velikosik, which sounds Bothan to me, but that's a reference to a Russian pseudoscientist and psychoanalyst named Emmanuel Velikowski or something like that. And so he pulled the name and
He
used it as
Tuckerized
the
him.
in-universe
Yeah.
character, and then changed the quote to fit Star Wars, but took a profound quote from like his pseudoscience books, where he was analyzing time, and he took that and he throws it into Supernatural Encounters. He's pulling stuff from everywhere, not just Star Wars, and it's beautiful how he takes like profound stuff from real world history and reworks it into Star Wars and works it into the fabric of the narrative. It's masterful.
That's the other thing that we should mention is that this book has, it maybe breaks the record for Tuckerizations. There's I think contributors up to
Watkins Mill.
Yeah, Watkins Mill is Matt
Watkins
Wilkins.
Mill, yes.
Mike Bidler is Mick Bidlor, the adventurer, and
Except he's not from here originally. He's originally from the Han Solo trilogy by A.C. Crispin, and Joe just took that character and brought him back.
Yeah,
which is so cool.
But I know that people have expressed issues with the whole Tuckerization thing, and I mean, I think the reality is that like every author does it. Every author like draws on names from their own world to do it, and maybe this goes overboard, but it does it intentionally and by design, right? Like, and that's every issue that you have with this book, it's not like it was done with care. So there's an intentional design behind it, right? So it's not like, I think one thing you can't fault the book for is just being like haphazard or doing things like that are tone deaf, right? Everything was done for a reason. Now you may not like it, which is fair, but I think that we can all say like this was, like time was taken to make this book.
Something that Michael Kogi told us in person when me and Marcel were talking to him regarding the Despotica, because we were talking about Ozioff, and he was like, well, that's Ozioff right there.
He points this guy standing next to him. Yeah.
And so like those are Tuckerizations. We just didn't know it, right?
Yeah.
So the expanded universe already has Tuckerized names. So like, what's different about it,
Hello, sir. We are talking about, this is a book club. We're talking about book 1. Yeah, he saw you were coming and fled.
He didn't want to be subject to ridicule.
That's right. Maxine is here. Yeah. We're talking about book 1 of Supernatural Encounters and our thoughts on it. If you've read it, let me know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts too, if you want to hop on. But yeah, I mean, the Tuckerizations, I don't really have an issue with. I think it's kind of neat to get your name in. I'm not in this book. Like I didn't contribute to that level or early enough for my name to be in this book. But I understand that you are, Brennan.
Yeah, my character's an Anzadi. Spoilers for book 6, I think.
Book 6, but, yeah. That's book 6 is like the meat and potatoes of this novel. Like we're only talking about book 1 today. I think in future streams we're probably just we're not gonna do each book. We're gonna do like chapters, like 8 or 10 chapters a stream, essentially, because very interesting. Yeah. You definitely, well, I mean, knowing how fast you read, you'll probably get it done in like a few days.
You'll finish it before I finish the next chapter.
Yeah.
Me too.
But I really think it's cool how he draws on all these different elements of the EU and stuff like the Abel Pena had fleshed out earlier. And really like makes you question like, conventional history, like what we know about, the Sith, for instance. Like there's one in book 1, there's one instance where they're talking about what the the accepted history of the Sith is, and then it's brought up the fact that like, well, wait a second, like there's evidence of like Sith temples like 38,000 years before the Thoyors even launched and stuff like that from Jedi, and so it's just crazy. I was telling Maxine earlier today, like it almost feels like I'm reading like forbidden history, like Eldritch history, right? Like it's I even like are the shadows coming for me later? I don't know.
As I was going through it, I kept feeling like I shouldn't be reading this. You know what I mean? And it just made it even more interesting. It was like, I shouldn't know this. Like Marcel said, forbidden knowledge. Like this stuff. Like not even George Lucas is privy to this. This is the secrets of everything. And it makes it so intriguing. Like like
Well, I was gonna
Marcel
say.
said about the, sorry,
Oh no, go ahead.
like you were saying about how it makes you question history and the
Yeah.
historical narrative, like when it cast doubt on the Rakatans as well, like I think that's in book 1 as well.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
they cast out that the Rakatans like were such a big empire.
Yeah.
Like we've always been told they're the infinite empire, and it just cast doubt that it was infinite.
I can
Yeah.
read. I can read that passage.
In
So
your narrator voice.
no, I'm not gonna.
Yes.
An empire infinite in name only, added Q9. 10,000 years of rule, I interjected, is no small feat. Even if such numbers were true, your ancient enemy was a far older race, or possibly several races working in tandem. Both the Sith and the Rakata may have worked alongside them or for them. So it's like you get the sense that the Rakatan Infinite Empire, they're just like a bit player. They're not even.
Yeah.
They ruled 500 worlds. They're not even that big.
They're
It's
just
crazy.
like this. They're like this small little blip in
Yeah.
history where we're
And-
made to think it's such a big part, but it's just this little itty bitty
Little
spot.
blip, yeah. And no wonder
And
this
they
book is
even-
controversial.
Yeah.
They even hint that the Rakatans are like pawns of some greater threat we've never heard
Yeah.
of. Like it's just so crazy.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like it's shaking up previously established knowledge and paradigms both in universe and without.
And
That's
out.
the metatextual aspect of this whole thing, which is fascinating. Even if you don't like supernatural encounters or you completely reject it, like it's just fascinating to kind of see this play out in real time.
And you can still read it and then decide in the end Arhul was a liar. You can just be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, he was a lunatic writing some old rubbish,
Yeah.
As you know, I haven't reached the end of this book, but as I'm certain there will be some members, if not many members of the historical council by the end of this book that will be completely unpersuaded by this discussion, right? By Arhul's account of what he learns in other space, right? Because we learned that pretty early on. I think we failed to mention it in the beginning, but like basically like this manuscript represents what Arhul found out in other space about the nature of the universe and the galaxy and that kind of thing. And I think Joe says in the Supernatural Encounters panel from LegendsCon, hopefully they post like an official version of that soon so everybody can take a look at it because it's really interesting. He talks about like this really is a book about like where we come from, who we are, and where we're going, and asking those fundamental questions of human existence, right? In the context of Star Wars and through a Star Wars lens. And it's just that's why in a way like it transcends a mere Star Wars novel, right? It's like a novel, it's a reference book, but it's like
it's
just-
very
it is. Yeah.
and it's very Star Trek in the way that it explores philosophy. Star Trek, something
Yes.
it did over and over again was use science fiction and the world around it to bring up questions about humanity. Who are we? Who are we as a people? Where are we going? Where have we been from? Where are we headed? And Supernatural Encounters likewise does that. It uses the continuity to like ask questions about ourselves. Like Marcel said, who are we? And it does it so masterfully as well. With the prologue, having the protagonist die in the prologue was like a James Luceno level thing, like Darth Plagueis or something,
Yeah. Alex mentioned that earlier.
Okay, nice. He
Yeah,
beat me
you
to
didn't
it
even
then.
realize. Yeah, you both came to that conclusion. That's so funny. One thing I wanted to talk about on page 48, Arhul, when he's on the Osirian planet, I forgot the name of the planet, but the one that they go missing from, he comes across. What was it called, Brennan? You said earlier, I think in the Discord, the planet that he's on.
Atollin.
Atollin. Yeah, I think that's the name of the planet. He comes across a being that I don't know if it's actually the case, but for those of you who are new canon, trigger warning. For those of you who are familiar with Rebels, there is a creature called the Bendu, and I'm almost near certain that this creature that he comes across is the Bendu.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No. Hold on. Wait.
It says on page 48, halfway down, I turned back to question the bearded bovine, but he was now a tremendous wolf though still antlered and shaggy.
And see, the whole wolf reference too is like, it's like the Loth wolves are tied to
Wow.
the, are
I
tied to
didn't
the
even put
Bendu.
that together.
Yeah,
Holy
see?
crap.
There's always going to be like little things that come up. But here, I'll share my screen
Wow.
again. But here's
Now,
the
if anyone
Bendu.
knows me and knows my stances on like Star Wars, you know that I am quite radically opposed to the new canon.
Yeah, see, there's the antlers.
And so some people will like question my like supernatural encounters.
This is a funny picture.
Like
Sorry.
there's reference there, you
Yeah.
know? But I think it's great. And Joe explained it to me like this. If there was a parallel universe of our Earth, chances are events would not unfold the same way, right?
Yeah.
But chances are a Max, a Marcel, and a Brennan will exist in some capacity in that other universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there can be a Bendu creature of the expanded universe. Just as there could be a Thrawn of the new canon universe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
New canon takes expanded universe characters, brings them over. So why
Yeah.
can't the expanded universe take new canon characters and bring them
Yeah.
over?
Yeah, I think that's fair game. What's funny is that like I mean it's the Bendu I think is also maybe mythologically tied to the Mortis gods,
Yeah.
and they are in both the new canon and the old canon as well, right? So
Yep.
I mean, there's precedent here, and I'm not fussed by it. I thought the actual scene itself was really cool because he presents Hex with three doors, right? He says
So
like,
good.
the first let me go to my notes. I wrote them down like copiously this afternoon. I was like scribbling
Wow,
them before
that
the
is
shadows
so
got me.
cool. I didn't even
Yeah.
put that together. That is so cool.
So yeah, the three doors are the first door is Dream,
Well
which
done.
represents the past. The second door is Will, which if Arhul were to walk through it, it will give him the might to attain what he seeks. And then the third door is Mystery, Future.
Yeah.
And Arhul chooses the third door, right? Like he walks into the future.
Yep.
Oh, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hello there.
I'm doing good. I don't want to speak for my co-hosts here.
I'm doing good too.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I just blew her mind in my reference.
Yeah,
to Bendu.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'd never literally would have put that together. I would have gone on as I was, finished the book, and then you would have said that, and I've been like, wait, hold on. Oh my god.
and
That
see,
is
like
so
that,
cool.
that's the thing, right? I thought it was done in a way that was very respectful to the lore.
Yeah.
And the three doors thing is so cool. I think you and me were talking, Brennan. It's like something out of like almost like the Never-Ending Story or
The
something.
Never-Ending Story.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Another thing regarding the Bendu is there already exists in the Star Wars universe the Order of the Dai Bendu.
Yeah.
That's right.
That are kind of tied to it from Dawn of the Jedi, from Episode 1 Racer. So I think there's a lot of precedence for how this creature could exist in the expanded universe.
Right.
I think everyone would think I'm troubled by it, and I'm probably raging and throwing the book across the room, Alex style. But in actuality, I think it works. I think it fits.
Yeah.
And in a book that's dealing with supernatural elements, why wouldn't a giant Santa Claus, antlered, bovine, goat, giant rock thing show up?
And why wouldn't a monastic order name themselves after that?
Yeah, I mean,
creature.
It all kind of clicks. It works very well.
I have a funny story about this book, which I told Max off stream, but I'm going to repeat it on stream. So I literally cradled this thing in my lap as I dragged it across 3 different airports.
You told me this too. Yeah.
And it came home in pristine condition, like even the dust jacket, not a scratch on it. And I was just shocked because I carried it across a continent when I brought it home. And then I'm like resting it on my desk, and it kind of like teetered over and it falls. And like the side, you can barely even see it, but the side is just kind of like a little dented on the side there. You barely see it on the edge, right at the top edge.
Down a little bit.
Yeah. But my floor, there's a dent in my floor from there was more damage done to the floor than there was this book. And I'm like, that's crazy that, the book is fine. The floor, not so fine. But now I look on that dent on my floor lovingly, because I was like, you know what? That was done by Supernatural Encounters. And yeah, I mean, this is crazy. It's always like, like these random video. I think it was like the Terrace Cassie who introduced like Arden Lin and the
Yep.
Minions of Zendor.
Yeah,
and all
the
that stuff,
video
like, right?
game.
Like, yeah, so
Yep.
it's always like these random video games that have like this deep lore.
Mm.
Yeah.
Better the floor get damaged. I totally agree with this. Right?
True.
The floor is meant to be walked on. This book is meant to be cherished and loved forever. So
Yeah. I was I had mine in the box office with me at the theater the other day, and one of my coworkers came in. They had a drink with them, and it was my book was on the counter, and I was like hovering over the book. And I was like, you do it. I was like, you step away and do not bring any liquid within like 5 feet of this book.
I was reading the book in the car in Arkansas. In Arkansas, super hot. So if you leave the book in the car, the glue's gonna melt and the pages fall out. So I just walk into Arby's, where my family had been going, carrying this giant book, pick a table that doesn't have any crumbs or liquid on it,
Yeah.
put it there, and then keep my body between the food and the book.
Yeah.
I think we're all doing our part to like make sure these copies stay intact. This is like the holy grail of our collection.
Absolutely.
You know that course in high school where they like it's like a home ec course, but they make you take care of like a robot baby
Or a rice baby, like made out of like rice or something.
This thing is heavier than that robot baby,
Yeah.
and I'm taking better care of it than I ever did that robot baby.
We all need, you know the like backpacks
yeah,
that
man.
parents can get to carry around babies. We just all
Yeah,
need
we
that
just
with
have the
supernatural
supernatural encounter. That's so good.
You know, I might actually take that was for Ken in the comments. I might actually take a picture of myself holding this book in my baby carrier tomorrow and post it on like Joe's Discord or something.
I was in the break room at work the other day, and I was reading the book, and I kind of stood up and got a Pop-Tart out of our drawer, but one of my coworkers is in there. He's staring at the book, and I was just like looking at him out of the corner of my eye, just like, holy crap, like she actually reading that? And he's just like, what are you reading? And I was like, it's a lot to explain. I was like, I can't really talk about it without like showing you the secrets of the universe.
You know what? You should have just opened it to like a random page and be like, we serve not dread typhagem. Nor bow to the ossuary kings of Xanthier and
Uzultherum.
Uzultherum.
Show them like the immortal gods of the Sith or something, you know, just be like, oh my god, she's like some Satanist person. Like
just open it up to
this guy.
He did this on my stream the other day.
Hey man, good to see you.
Lap, what's up?
You should just open it up to the chapter that describes the creation of the universe.
Yeah.
Like
blow his mind.
The creation account of Star Wars.
Yeah. I actually on my live stream on Instagram last night, I read aloud the birthing of Talatni's offspring. And it's just such a grotesque and like off-putting like
have you seen The Lord of the Rings where
there's a lot to unpack
where the orc is born, right?
Yes.
The orc is born in the like bowels of the castle. It's like that.
Exactly. And it was just so nasty, and I was just reading it on stream and just like these people think I'm crazy.
There are a couple passages from very early on in the prologue that I just kind of wanted to read out. This part right here. But the appetite for truth doesn't care about accolades, reputation, or comfort. It scorns all such notions as the luxuries they are. Even worse, it seeks to be shared, despite the fact that most in the galaxy have little patience for it, and some take pleasure in deriding it. Almost like at points, I'm like, is this Arhul speaking or is this Joe speaking?
Yeah.
And then on page 16, why sacrifice so few precious years if nothing awaits beyond the grave but endless seas of black oblivion? If eternal nothingness is the abiding place of the departed, were not the hedonist philosophers right in laughing at all notions of hope and struggle as the province of fools? I'm like, man, I'd like rear back. I was like, I need to smoke. I don't even smoke, but I need to smoke right now.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I picked up on the on like the book, and even further ahead, like after
Indeed,
after book 1 is like the real world allegories that he has in here. There's so many riddled throughout this book, and like reading it, I was just like, wow, this reflects real life, you know? And I absolutely loved that.
Yeah. I know, me too. It's amazing. Yeah, we'll wrap up soon. I did want to talk a bit about the end of book 1, the Ewoks. The Ewoks, Sindel Tawani. So we know, so for those of you who don't know, Sindel Tawani is, she's a little girl in the Ewok movies, in both 1 and 2, Caravan of Courage and, the Battle for Endor. Is that the second one? I think that's the second one.
Never
Okay.
watched.
Oh man. Ewoks Battle for, yes, it is Battle for Endor. Okay. And that one has a Dathomirian Night Sister in it. It was later retconned to be a Dathomirian Night Sister, which is really cool. But we find out that the Ewok movies themselves, as well as the Ewoks show, you know, like the 80s, we are the Ewoks. They are like canonically in universe, those movies and that show. And Janzikek, the doubter, as I will call him, doubting Janzikek, tries to, he tries to, the lizard, he tries to discredit Sindel for you know, basically being the progenitor of these tales by saying, like, look at these foolish tales, like, how could they possibly be Brennan and Alex had to go, but we're going to carry on for a bit before we end it.
And then they mention like how she's written like children books for like about Ewoks and stuff, like based on her events, and then they discredit that too. They're just like, oh, you know, that's mere like children's fantasies, just so you could like, you know, make money off of it, making these books for kids and whatnot, and none of it's just like actually true.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that, like, she's like, yes, they did take some minor liberties because it's a kids show, but she's like, those stories, which I thought was interesting and amazing, largely represent what happened. Like, they are like largely true. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, yes, they are firmly within sea canon. But the other interesting thing is that we find out that Sindel Tawani, who's like in her mid to late 30s at this point, like, she has we actually see her in the expanding universe. She comes in the Black Fleet crisis. She comes back, and we find out she's a reporter. But since that time, she's made a name for herself as someone who doesn't work for one of these big news networks, right? Like, there's this kind of scathing indictment of reporters as people who like fabricate the truth or make up the news, so that they or they're ephemeral, right? Like, they report on things that don't matter.
And that was another sorry to that was like another real world like allegory, because that happens today. You know, people will misconstrue the news and purposely just to kind of tell a certain narrative.
Right, like they have an agenda or something. Like, there's almost like this indictment of like core news networks, like from the core of the galaxy. And so, but Sindel Tawani, she works for, I think, I forgot what it's called, like the Monitor or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, but she works for an independent news agency, and she's known for basically being truthful and having integrity. And so she is invited to this historical council to corroborate Arhul Hextrophon's manuscript, or at least the parts that relate to Endor. Because by the end of book 1, Arhul is trying to find a way into other space. And he has a couple options. He has the Hell Hoop that we mentioned earlier from the Devil Worlds comics. But he also has this wormhole called the Endor Gate, which is near Endor, and that could bring him into other space. And we learn a lot about Endor in these last couple pages. That's why Sindel Tawani is there, right? She basically corroborates all the Endor myths and says, like, you know, she's like Han Solo in The Force Awakens. She's like, it's true, all of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, that's right, Scott. And it is. Thank you. It's the Life Monitor. I appreciate it.
It reminds me of, like, reading that, it reminded me of the reporter from the Fate of the Jedi series. I forgot her name, and then she gets killed by like the Mandalorians under like Dala's orders, and then because like she was like actually like telling the truth on things.
Oh yeah,
of that.
She was the one who was reporting on the slave revolts, if I recall correctly. Yes. I forgot her name as well.
And I know she was like a Deveronian.
That's right.
I think, but I can't remember the name.
Let me see if I can find it. Maddie Vant.
There it is.
Maddie Vant was a female Deveronian freelance news reporter active after the Second Galactic Civil War. Vant honed her craft under the guidance of Till Crane, men with whom she worked her entire career. Yeah. So yeah, very much so. Right. Like Maddie Vant is the one who like she kind of like gets she's like the war correspondent from Kabul. Like she's actually on the scene, giving the news. And so yeah, Sindel Tawani is much like her in the sense that she has this journalistic integrity, and she's there to give her own account of things. And we find out that she actually cultivated a friendship with Leia following the Black Fleet crisis, the Yavithan uprising. Mad event. Yeah. You know what? Maybe there's another Tuckerization of not necessarily a name, but like, a word itself. Hello, one of the esteemed editors of Supernatural Encounters is in the comments. Thank you for joining us. We're just talking about book 1, and we're specifically talking about the end of book 1, the Sindel Tawani stuff. But we find out that there's this kind of like early race on Endor called the Endor, and they end up becoming the Wisties because they pour so much. Yeah, they pour so much of themselves into like the environment in order to protect Endor. And what's funny about that is that there's this reference to the Endor Holocaust, and like some people believed it happened, and that's another
that's another allegory for real life.
For real life, because there was like a website back in the day and a very popular theory that like Endor, the forest moon of Endor, would have been subjected to a horrible nuclear holocaust as a result of the blast from the second Death Star and the debris falling on it. But no, Endor is almost like mystically protected. And that's why it's able to thrive and so much life. And you really get the sense of this if you watch like the Ewoks movies or the show, but there are so many different races on Endor. And we find out in this book that like some of them can read and write, like the Ewoks. I assume the Duloks can also read and write. Oh look, Blue Pig is back.
Somehow Blue Pig returned.
I know, it's amazing. We were talking about that earlier, and it's just it's quite fascinating to watch. And this, the Endor mythology is just like deep. We could have an entire book, maybe even the length of Supernatural Encounters, just on Endor mythology. You could spend years, like they could teach university courses, not even about Star Wars, but about Endor mythology.
Just Endor mythology.
Like it's just so vibrant and packed with different life and races.
And on the cover of the paperback.
Is it? Oh yeah, wow. Okay, I didn't even realize that.
I asked Joe about it. Like I emailed him and I was like, "What is that?" And he's just like, "Oh, it's like one of the first battles of Endor between like the different elemental like goddess like
that's so cool
deities and stuff." And it's like I forgot exactly what he said, but he said it was like one of the first like battles of Endor between like the higher powers of like the whole thing.
Yeah, and like Endor must be like some kind of like ground zero for this kind of stuff, because like they call it lower, I think, or like lesser Tana, and then like greater Tana is like the actual Endor gas giant itself. But we talk about like the Endor we talked about Ewoks, Duloks, Dagon, Gorf, Quark, Jotnar, Bobog, Persta. I can't even pronounce that word, but these are different races. Munyips, Titterbugs, Ketes, Tamblays, Fleabogs, Mimps, Mudgubs, Tromes. Tromes I remember from the Ewoks cartoons. Lamakai, who are called the Flower People. Triconicals. Like there's just so many different races on Endor, and like so many sentient races on Endor. So I mean,
and then the Wisties, right?
Oh,
thanks, man. The Wisties. So I know of the Wisties from Battlefront 2.
That's awesome.
Yeah, in the Ewok hunt mode, there's like when you play as the Ewok, you can throw like Wisties at people.
Really?
So like I when I'm reading about it and they mentioned the Wisties and what they actually are, I was like, no way. I was like, now I am like never gonna like play that game mode the same ever again. So it was really cool.
That's so funny. I love the Wisties. They're from, I think they're also in the movies, but they're from the cartoon. I would like to do maybe more. I don't know, Supernatural Encounters has really captured my imagination. I feel like not enough people are talking about it, so that's why I wanted to do this. And kudos to Brennan for inspiring me to do this book club. They are like flash grenades. That's exactly right. Yeah. So I just love that there's like this deep and rich Endor mythology that's being drawn on here, because it's always been a favorite setting of mine. I've always loved the Ewoks. Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. I think it's yours too, Max.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I don't know that you love the Ewoks, but I've always just
Yeah, I like the
yeah.
Ewoks.
A lot of people had issues with them back in the day, right? And then the Gungans kind of took over the narrative.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was the Gungans.
yeah. Yes, they are from Caravan of Courage. I recall that. Yeah. So, and I think maybe in the comics as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think there might have been some Wisties. My daughter's a huge fan of the Ewoks. She loves those cartoons, and she keeps begging me to like watch them. We actually haven't even finished yet. We're still on season 2. Here, let's see. We gotta. Yes, exactly. And like that's why it's like a perfect setting for like almost like a story like this, right? Where there's these mystical powers, and it's like, how did the Ewoks, who are like, I wouldn't say they are somewhat of a primitive race, but they're not like they have their own like science and their own magic and their own way of doing things and their own medicine and their own reading and writing and stuff like that. But like like how do they view things through their eyes, right? It's like almost like we have to put ourselves back in their shoes, and like how would an early human view something like an airplane or a spaceship or something like that, right? They would think it was magic. Right. Yeah, I know, from the first deck. And like that's another, like we could talk about that all day, just how much lore is being drawn from early Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yes, Willow, the third spiritual third Ewok film, in a sense. I mean, like, if you told me Willow took place on the same moon, forest moon or whatever, I wouldn't be shocked. But like that's the thing, right? Like there's just so much in Supernatural Encounters that draws on these early origins. At this point in the book, because I'm still very early on, yeah, that's a beautiful picture. That's
I love that.
Sindel visiting the grave of her parents.
That was so good.
Her brother. And I think that's like the ghost of like William F. What's his name? Brimley or whatever, the guy who plays. Anyways, so like suffice it to say, there's just like a lot in book 1. Like I was not lying when I said every single page I had to stop to write something down, and I didn't even catch like half the references, I'm sure, but just of the things that kind of jumped out to me.
Hell, I didn't catch the Bendu thing that you told me about. I'm still like kind of reeling from that.
We find out like that the Cathal Rift pushed I think the Osirians or something. It might have like pushed them into other space.
Yeah.
We find out like just so many interesting like little things that you wouldn't even think about, right?
It's just such a deep book. There's just so much there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. See, like this is one thing, like, I mean, like, again, there are more recent Star Wars stories for those who are fans of the more recent stuff or of both continuities that really kind of show that. And there are also, I would say, like there are stuff like the Republic comics which show that as well. And the Tusken Raiders aren't just like mindless enemies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you did a great job, man. Like honestly, like it's just an amazing job, and also like thank you so much for all your work on Supernatural Encounters as well.
And then I have to say that about the Jawas too. Like the Jawas, like you usually kind of overlook them as like just the silly like little droid traders, and then they're always portrayed as just these like smelly, gross like creatures, and then like this isn't like Supernatural Encounters kind of related, but like reading in like Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina and reading about like more like in depth with Jawas, and you find out that there's just this whole culture there, and like they're smelly to us, but like to them that's how they read themselves. That's like how they determine mood or different like status quos and stuff. It's all so fascinating, and Supernatural Encounters just kind of builds on all of that with different with the Ewoks in this sense, and just Endor in general, and how it like elaborates on all the different species and events and like the aspects of like Endor's culture and what it's like to be on that planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I agree with this, Al. This is, I think, a really important comment. The best thing about SE, even having not read it, is bringing about these complex conversations of the fandom, actually injecting real nuance into Star Wars. one of the earliest comic strips ever written has Mistress Memnos in it. I'm gonna share my screen just so.
Ooh.
Yeah. Here, let me see. Boom. Do you see on the right hand side, Max? That's like the giant supercomputer. She's.
Wow.
And we get a reason as to why there aren't more of these supercomputers in the galaxy, because
Yeah.
they were doing such a good job of running things that here, this is the original comic strip. It's kind of blurry, but there you
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah, there's C-3PO giving her an account of Luke Skywalker's adventures in the comics and stuff like that. But yeah, we get like a, one of the reasons why there's not that many supercomputers left, because there's like Master Nemos and Mistress Nemos, is because they were doing such a good job of running things. They were like exposing corrupt government officials. They weren't letting corporations take advantage of citizens. That that basically politicians stoked fears of like, oh, AIs are all going to like join up into one giant hive mind, and so they discontinued the line of supercomputers.
Yeah. Again, another real world thing that happens today is like with the ever growing like subject of AI in the real life, people are like, they always have the superstition that AI is going to take so many jobs and it's going to like change society, and that, with the more extremist views saying that robots are going to take over or something. So I love the real world like allegories and connections in supernatural encounters. I think it's fascinating.
Agreed. And I just wanted to say, for those who are interested in actually reading these early comic strips, they're in the if you can find the 2 epic collections, they're in the newspaper strips epic collection. Volume 1 specifically is when C-3PO talks to Mistress Nemos. And yeah, I know some of they're hard to read sometimes, and they're a little wordy and stuff like that, but yes, they are super deep cuts for sure. I mean, there's a suggested reading list before you engage with supernatural encounters, and all that like early stuff is on there. Yes, well, that's because it's high literature, Blue Pig, and you can tell Slav that.
It actually is.
Yeah, is there anything else before we wrap this up? Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of book 1? I mean, I saw there was a Devil Worlds reference about their adventures on Devil Worlds,
the Hell Hoop and everything that
with the Hell Hoop, and I think it was, spoilers, Wootzak,
yeah,
or Wutzak,
yeah.
on page 57, if you want to look for that, and then page 58. Here, I just want to read this real quickly. But there are some who believe that these rare celestial anomalies in space are actually wormholes that could transfer one to other regions of space. Interstellar cartographers have scoffed at this conjecture, but the Gree hypergates created what were essentially hyperspace wormholes. And in his Book of Anger, Darth Sidious described a way to use the dark side to do so. That is a Dark Empire reference, because he uses a wormhole to transport Luke from Coruscant to Bisk. Boom. But the other thing that I thought was really cool about that is that it talks about the hypergates, and we see that in the have you read the Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void?
I started it, but I've read more of the Dawn of the Jedi comics.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so the whole book, as I recall, it's been a long time since I read it. I basically read it when it was released, and I haven't touched it since. But the whole book is basically like a race to this like hypergate, essentially. It's like Stargate. And that's correct. Rich Hanley, who is a good friend of Joe's. That's right. They're all part of that that same crew: Mike Beidler, Rich Hanley, Joe Bongiorno, and then there's also the IDW collections. Yep, those are the black and white ones, perhaps, if you want. Yeah.
I love that. Like, they mention how like Whatsapp gives like Chewie like an insight to like the secrets of the universe, and it's like it's insane just knowing that like Chewbacca knows all this through like the OT, and just like everyone's like, oh my god, we gotta go save Luke on Bespin, and just like Chewie's just like, I know how the universe was made, like
he just the knowledge dies with him on certain.
I know in Cernpital, it's just like the knowledge of the universe just died with him.
Chewbacca was a celestial being in the end, and we never even knew it.
I know.
And this is a really great comment. Like there always is something more. Whenever I'm narrating these short stories, I'm trying to do them in order. People are like, "Oh, well, what about this one that you missed?" I'm like, "Of course I missed something that was in order."
Yeah.
Because it's just there's always something undiscovered from some like obscure magazine that was published in France, or from
Yeah.
some obscure magazine that has nothing to do with Star Wars, but it's about like video games, and there's like some new piece of EU in it. So I almost feel like, yeah, I'm obviously I want continuation, even if it's
Yeah.
just to finish off the stories. But like I'm very preoccupied now with just getting through and reading for the first time some of the stuff, but also rereading the EU
Yeah.
for the first time in like almost like 15-20 years for some of these books. So
Yeah, and when you go back to it, true. But when you go back and reread things, you like, sometimes you see it with new eyes, and you pick up on things differently. Like I first read Plagueis in high school, and then like I read it again like a year or so later, and it's just if it's like a different read, like you're reading it for the first time.
that's right.
I read that book all the time. It's my favorite. So
Yeah, I feel like Supernatural Encounters is one of those books where I will read it once cover to cover, and I'm slowly making my way through it because I want it to last, and I want to
yeah.
try and like I'm studying it essentially is what I'm doing.
Mm.
I'm studying it, but then I will read it eventually, like if my health doesn't fail me, one more time, maybe like 20 years from now,
Yeah.
um, you know, just to relive the memories and see if my opinion changes on anything at all. Because like you said, Max, like perspective changes. Like there's
Mhm.
some books that I like. I'm gonna use a more negative example, but Wraith Squadron, when I read that as a kid, I worshipped that book, and I reread it as an adult, and I didn't care for it as much as I cared for Iron Fist and Solo Command, the other two books in the Alston X-Wing trilogy.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing, right? It's like, perspectives change, and sometimes things don't click with you as much as they used to.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Like when I read Tales from Mos Eisley, I was like,
Mhm.
oh man, I know exactly who those people are. I know exactly what they were doing
Exactly.
right before this scene.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's the
how I was, especially with Tales from Jabba's Palace, because like after I finished reading it, I went and watched Return of the Jedi again, and I was just like picking out all the characters in the scene. I was like, oh, that's Jakeel, and Bib Fortuna becomes a Bomar monk at the end, and
yeah.
I love that.
Right, and it's just so interesting. Like that's the beauty of the expanded universe, that it expands on things, right?
Exactly.
um Here we go. For my roles, I focus on the areas yeah, I mean, of course, right? Like you gotta that's like Sindel Tawani. She's like, I'm not going to speak to like Hextrophon talking about things that are not within my purview, but I can talk about what he said about Endor, and I can corroborate that evidence.
Hmm.
Everybody's an expert in something, maybe not in everything, but that's why I think like Supernatural Encounters, I mean, it was written by Joe, and much love to it, to him for doing that, because I do think it's truly a masterpiece, but also like much love to all the editors who spent a ton of time making this the thing that it is today. Like, it's just like monumental. There were so many different, it takes a village, right? It really does. And I think
Mhm.
this book is demonstrative of that. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, the arthritis is starting to like act up in my hands too. So button mashing games like that are not my, not my forte.
That was
But
me with Force Unleashed too. Like when I first played it when it came out, I like absolutely adored that game. And then when you play it again, you're just like, oh no, this is not good.
well, that's exactly it, right? Like everybody has something to add, and so I think that I will say, Harry, I think this book really benefited from having you on it. And again, I appreciate. I'm only 67, 68 pages in right now, but I'm loving every aspect of it. And yeah, there's not every. I shouldn't say I'm loving. Like there's some things I don't agree with, but overall, I think it's a masterpiece. It really is for me like the Silmarillion
Yeah,
of Star Wars, and
and it's
regardless of whether or not like these comments about or discussions about canonicity don't really matter to me as much as like the actual text within, right? Because it's all fiction at the end of the day.
yeah. For
Um,
me, I
yeah.
know it is for Brennan. I mean, not Brennan, Alex as well. I mean, it might be for Brennan, but for me, Supernatural Encounters is literally top 3 EU, and I'm not even done with it. I'm like 270 pages in, but it's already like top 3 EU for me. It's so good.
Yeah, that's why I invited you on the stream. I was like, hey man, you can hop in maybe next time. I don't know when the next one's going to be. Hopefully in maybe like a couple weeks or something like that. We can do another one I'm looking at book 2, and there's only like another 10 chapters. We could probably do book 2 in another stream as well, and then kind of start breaking it down after that. Yeah, it's a great game. I think Max has played that game. Like, how many times you play that game? Yeah, exactly.
20 or so times.
So Rosh Pennant's her favorite character in the expanding universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we could probably wrap it up here. And I don't know that I have anything more to say. I thank you to Max for joining me tonight, and to my other two co-hosts, Brennan and Alex. Thank you to everybody in the comments that stuck around to watch, and hope you enjoyed this. We will do another one soon, part 2, and we'll start talking about book 2 as we delve further into the mysteries of supernatural encounters, the trials and transformations of Arhul Hextrophon.
Love it.
Cheers.
Bye.